What if everything you thought about awakening was wrong? They told you it would feel like peace, clarity, and light, but right now, all you feel is lost, confused, and disconnected. And that's not by accident. That's the real awakening, the part nobody wants to talk about. You're not failing. You're finally seeing through the illusion of self. The life you used to call normal no longer fits. The job feels empty. The people around you don't understand. And worst of all, you're questioning everything you used to believe. That's not confusion. That's a spiritual awakening cracking your ego wide open. This video isn't just a comfort blanket. It's a mirror. You'll finally understand why feeling lost is actually proof that something powerful is happening inside you. You'll discover how the pain you're in is clearing the path for a deeper inner transformation. And most of all, you'll stop thinking you're broken and start realizing you're waking up. Get ready, because the truth hits hard, but it heals even harder. 1. The breakdown. Before the breakthrough, there's a moment in every spiritual awakening when everything starts to fall apart. The job that used to make sense suddenly feels meaningless. The relationships that once defined you begin to fade. Even your passions might start to feel like costumes you're no longer willing to wear. This collapse isn't punishment, it's a necessary purge. Without it, the new can't enter. Imagine trying to pour fresh coffee into a cup that's still full of yesterday's leftovers. What most people don't realize is that this breakdown is part of a deeper inner transformation. It's like demolition before construction. The illusion of self, everything you thought you were, is being dismantled, and yeah, it's scary as hell. But think of it like remodeling your life's foundation. You can't build something real until the old fake structure is gone. Just like a caterpillar melts into mush before becoming a butterfly. Men going through this often feel like they're going crazy. One day, you're handling life, and the next, you're questioning if anything you ever believed was true. You may even start doubting your own sanity, but you're not broken, you're waking up. This is the crack where light gets in. Books like The Untethered Soul or The Power of Now help a lot in these times. They speak the truth no one told us growing up. It's okay to lose yourself to find something deeper. So if you're in the chaos right now, if life feels like it's crumbling from every direction, that's your sign. You're being prepped for something much bigger than you thought possible. The spiritual awakening doesn't hand you clarity right away. It strips away everything that isn't true first. And the moment the ego starts to panic, well, that's when things start to get even more interesting. 2. Losing the ego feels like losing yourself. When the ego begins to dissolve, it can feel like your entire identity is slipping through your fingers. The roles you've played, father, husband, worker, friend, don't feel as solid anymore. It's disorienting, like waking up in a house you've lived in for years and suddenly not recognizing the rooms. That's because those roles were built by the mind, not by your real essence. The ego death is the process of peeling back all the false layers. And when those start to go, it's common to feel empty. This isn't the kind of emptiness that comes from lack. It's the kind that feels like standing in a vast, open space with no roadmap. The ego was the map. Even if it was wrong, it gave you a sense of direction. Without it, your inner GPS recalibrates. That space you're feeling is awareness expanding beyond identity. But the mind doesn't like not knowing. It'll fight to bring back the illusion of self because it's terrified of disappearing completely. Many men in this stage try to fix the feeling by rushing back into distractions, work, sex, status, or control. But the medicine isn't in doing more. It's in sitting with the discomfort, letting yourself feel lost without trying to label it. Journaling can help here, not for solving anything, but for observing what's coming up. Ask yourself, who am I without all my achievements? Just that one question can shift the ground beneath you. Eventually, you begin to notice something strange. In losing who you thought you were, you start touching something real, something unshakable. Not a title, not a role, not an image, just presence. And that presence doesn't need to prove anything. That's where the spiritual awakening truly begins, when the show ends and you stop needing an audience. But that silence that shows up next isn't always easy to sit with. 3. When the old you dies, silence feels scary. There comes a point in every spiritual awakening when silence stops being peaceful and starts feeling like a threat. After the ego death, when the mind quiets down, the noise that kept you distracted vanishes. And what's left? A stillness that feels almost too big to face. It's like standing alone in a dark room with no furniture, no windows, no distractions, just you and your awareness. Most people run from that silence because it reflects back everything they were avoiding. But this silence isn't your enemy. It's the space where your real identity starts to emerge. It's uncomfortable only because you're not used to it. We've been conditioned to always do, fix, chase, or achieve. In the quiet, there's nothing to chase, only to observe. That's why many men feel unsettled during this stage. The usual metrics of success, money, validation, status, don't make sense here. They lose their meaning. And that's exactly the point. One thing that helps is embracing small daily moments of stillness without trying to fill them. Instead of reaching for your phone when nothing's happening, just breathe. Walk without headphones. Drive in silence. Let the mind detox. It's not about forcing peace, but allowing presence. A good practice is to wake up early, before the world starts, and sit with a cup of coffee. No agenda, just awareness. Over time, that silence becomes less of a void and more like home. At first, though, that silence will expose everything you buried. Old fears, grief, regrets, stuff you thought you'd outgrown, but don't panic. That's part of the inner transformation. You're not regressing, you're releasing. You're making space for the truth of your being to finally rise. But here's the thing. Most people bail right before that happens. They mistake the silence for emptiness when it's actually the gateway to something timeless. And that's where the real storm begins. 4. Awakening isn't blissful. It's brutal at first. People talk about spiritual awakening like it's this blissful, glowing experience where everything suddenly makes sense. But let's be honest, it's brutal in the beginning. You start to see the lies you've been living, the beliefs that shaped your choices, the patterns that kept you small, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like waking up in the middle of surgery and realizing you're the one holding the scalpel. There's no manual, no shortcut, just raw, messy truth staring you in the face. This part of the process isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to unmake everything false. It pulls the rug out from under your spiritual ego too, not just your worldly one. Even the belief that you were spiritual enough gets challenged. That's the illusion of self-cracking again. You realize awakening isn't about escaping pain, but facing it fully, without flinching, without blaming, without running. And that right there, that's where growth starts to take root. For many men, this is the moment they consider giving up. Not because they're weak, but because no one told them the truth. Awakening hurts. It breaks down your identity until you don't know who's in the mirror anymore. But that confusion, that's holy ground. That's where the real shift happens. That's where the spiritual awakening moves from idea to embodiment, from a book quote to a lived experience. It's no longer about knowing, it's about becoming. If you're in that storm, you're not broken, you're cracking open. And yeah, it sucks. It's uncomfortable. It might feel like hell. But you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not going backward. You're just stepping out of the dream, and the dream doesn't like being questioned. What comes next? Well, that's where things start to really mess with your sense of reality. 5. Confusion is a sign. You're detaching from illusion. Confusion during spiritual awakening isn't a sign that you're lost. It's a sign that the illusions are dissolving. Think about it. When your mind operated under lies, Everything made a kind of twisted sense. You played your role, followed the script, and believed that was all there was. But when the illusion of self begins to fall apart, you're left staring at the pieces, wondering what was real and what was just conditioning. That's not failure, that's progress. You're unlearning what never belonged to you. This confusion is sacred. It's your soul detoxing from years, sometimes decades, of mental programming. Society, parents, religion, media, they all helped shape a version of you that wasn't fully true. So when your inner transformation begins, it's natural for your system to go into shock. Suddenly, the things you used to trust, your routines, your beliefs, your identity, stop working, and that disorientation, that's your first real taste of freedom. But it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like chaos. Here's the key. Don't try to make sense of it too quickly. Most people panic and run back to comfort, but clarity can't be rushed. It has to rise naturally. Instead of seeking answers, start asking better questions. What if everything I thought I knew was just a survival strategy? Who am I when I'm not performing? Reflecting like this creates space for deeper insight. Meditation, yes, but also honest self-talk, journaling, even long walks without distraction. This is where the gold is buried. And just when you think you've figured it out, bam, another layer falls away. That's the game. The deeper you go, the more you see how much you were attached to false certainty. Spiritual awakening isn't about finding all the answers. It's about becoming okay with not needing them. But when you stop needing certainty, you also stop needing control. And that's when things get really wild, because now nothing owns you anymore. 6. Feeling lost means you're no longer being controlled. When someone says, "I feel so lost," my first thought is, good. That means you're finally free. Feeling lost is often the first time in your life you're not being controlled by external scripts. You're not following the path society drew for you. You're not chasing dreams you never chose. And yeah, it's unsettling, but it's also sacred. The spiritual awakening strips away the puppet strings, and standing there, not knowing what's next, is actually the most powerful place to be. Most of the time, we're told who to be long before we understand who we are. Get a job, get married, be strong, don't cry, make money, provide. So when those old frameworks dissolve, it's like losing your compass in the forest. But here's the twist. You were walking someone else's path. Feeling lost doesn't mean you're broken. It means the old guidance system is offline. And now you're being asked to tune into something deeper, your inner compass, not the external map. This stage isn't about finding direction in the traditional sense. It's about learning to sit in the unknown without rushing to fix it. That's what true spiritual awakening demands. And when you stop being controlled, you start hearing your soul more clearly. It whispers through your desires, your discomforts, and even your fatigue. So instead of asking, "What should I do?" ask, "What do I feel called to explore?" This shift changes everything. You stop chasing and start aligning. Here's a real example. Instead of forcing the next job, maybe you take time to explore what work actually feels meaningful. Instead of numbing out with distractions, you lean into your own company. Read books like Man's Search for Meaning or Stillness is the Key. These aren't just about knowledge. They rewire your mindset, because in this phase, it's not about building a new identity. It's about remembering that you never needed one to begin with. But remembering, that comes next. 7. You're not lost. You're just remembering who you are. That feeling of being lost, it's not the end of your path. It's the doorway to your truth. You're not broken, you're remembering. When the illusion of self starts fading, your soul begins whispering through the noise. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg. It gently calls you back to who you've always been, before the programming, before the expectations, before the ego decided who you should be. That's what real spiritual awakening is. Not becoming something new, but remembering something ancient. You start noticing glimpses of that real you in quiet moments, when you're laughing alone, when you're moved by music, when you feel peace for no reason. That's not coincidence. That's recognition. It's like reuniting with a friend you forgot you loved. This inner transformation can feel subtle, but it's powerful. You begin to want less approval and more peace. You stop needing to win and start wanting to be real. You drop the act. You breathe differently. You show up differently. The journey back to self isn't linear. Some days you'll feel completely clear. Other days, the fog rolls back in. That's okay. It's like spiritual muscle memory. You're building a connection to your deeper self, one conscious breath at a time. Practices like breathwork, solitude, and mindful movement, like Tai Chi or yoga, help create the space to listen. You're tuning into a deeper frequency now, one where ego doesn't run the show, one where your spirit calls the shots. So no, you're not lost. You're waking up from the dream. You're learning to trust yourself again. Not the self that others molded, but the one that existed before all the labels. And just when you begin to feel like you're finally touching truth, life invites you into a deeper layer. Because this journey, it doesn't end. It just keeps unfolding. If you want to elevate your vibrations and manifest with more ease, I have prepared something special for you. Click the link in the first pinned comment and join us in the journey of awakening your inner mage.